iterations of content and creativity now through YouTube and YouTube Shorts and TikTok, and they've created this platform that allows people to tap into the creativity. And I feel the same way about AI agents and AI in general. The people that embrace it, and especially I'll go back to businesses. Treading water is the same as drowning to people like you and me. You better start swimming. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Robb Green. Well, welcome to today's podcast. I am very excited to have Alexander DeRitter from SmythOS here. Welcome, Alexander.
Hi, Rob. Hi, audience. Nice to be here.
I'm a little giddy about this one. I feel like a little schoolgirl here, Alexander. I've been spending tons of energy and time trying to figure out what is the story around agentic AI workflow. What is the future? I think you said it off camera the best. I've peeked into the future and now I can't unsee the future. So tell us a little bit about, in broad terms for the audience that isn't familiar with this, agentic workflow, utilizing AI agents, kind of what you're trying to do with SmythOS.
Yeah. Right. So the first thing for your audience is like, what are AI agents? What the heck is agentic workflows? Let's just begin there really quickly and then move on. Okay. So a Netflix show, Alone and Afraid, you're jumped into Amazon forest and you have to survive for 30 days. You have your brain, your intelligence, but no tools. Okay. That's ChatGPT, right? Then GPT-4 comes out and is like, wait a minute. I know how to call APIs. I know how to interface with other websites to get stuff done. Okay, this is Alone and Afraid episode, like season 2. In season 2, this time, they're giving the humans some tools and they can now build like shelter. They can maybe have a fishing rod. They have maybe something to defend themselves against the snakes and the scary animals in the Amazon. That's like season 2, right? And that is basically what the basic form of what we call agency. Agency is the ability to act in the world. And on a very, I would say, in a very basic level, that means that a computer can talk to other computers over APIs and can interface with other APIs. But we've also seen things this year like agents inside of robot. A robot, an AI that's given agency in the real world with hands and arms and feet to move around. That's agents as well because they have agency to move around. They can do stuff. They can use the tool, which is in this case the robot. We're talking about an agent now. Then the upgrade from there is going into like season 3 of Alone and Afraid. It's not so much alone anymore. This time you have 6 survivors who are dropped in the jungle and they're all equipped with tools. All right. Now, instead of like a basic, tarp over your head, now you start seeing shelters emerge and like a basic civilization, so to speak, starts forming. And so I was at this conference a year ago. It was Fed Supernova in Austin. And I was at this event and there were all these booths, all these startups, all these people from government, all these people from business, and they all gathered there together. And I just paused for a moment and I even looked at the building, a beautiful hotel and office buildings, and I was thinking to myself, how does something like this happen? Like, how does this come about? You had the interior designer, you had the contractors, the blue collar workers who built this building, the event planners who did this, the people who made email possible to communicate all this, the people who traveled over airplanes. None of this, this is surreal. This does not come easily. This is a magnificent. Just the fact that I'm here in this conference, right? And so this is like where it really hit me, right? That without collaboration, humans are not that impressive. Our best achievements are through collaboration. So yeah, if the wheel gave us civilization and the printing press led to people on the moon, right? Then what do tools do when you give it to AI? This is like AI's discovery of the wheel and AI's discovery of tools. It is magnificent in terms of impact. But that is not enough. That's not where the story of agents stops. That's where it only begins. Because in season 3, right, AI doesn't just know how to use tools, but also knows how to collaborate in multi-agent systems. That means one is writing, one is editing, one is publishing, one is doing analytics, one is doing SEO optimization, and they all work together side by side, plus with their human colleagues. So this is the future that I believe in, that I'm seeing. I have put my head past the veil of the future as well, and I can't unsee it. And so now we're trying to create that future and help people create that future. We're trying to think, what does that do to the economy? What does that do to publishers? What does that do to small businesses? What does that do to SaaS companies? What does it do to enterprise? How does it change the world? How does it change society? And what is my contribution in that whole story? Well, I had the chance to jump in a time machine last year when these AIs all of a sudden could use tools. And when I stepped in that time machine, much like yourself, I realized that just like in the year 2000, it was too hard for people to go online. And then WordPress came along and made it easy. Or later, it was too hard for people to have an e-commerce store and fulfillment. And now you have the Shopify's. And it was so hard for people to collect payments online. And now you have Stripe. And so certain products came along in the right moment in time in history that basically made something that used to be really hard make it very, very easy and fast. And so when I had that chance to be in that time machine and see where these agents, where that future was going to go, our team, they put our heads together and said, you know what? There's going to be a need for a WordPress, Shopify, Stripe for that future. A technology can help accelerate bringing the world online into that future so that they can, reap the economic benefits and the creative benefits and advance civilization in such a way.
That is a great, probably the best comprehensive description I've heard of what you're doing and what we're trying to learn right now. And to bring it back to the layman or entrepreneur like myself, I think of it a lot like my overseas team, right? So my overseas team may not have the context or the depth of knowledge that some of the people, and I'm using the Philippines in this example, and we have specialists, and they might even be like, data entry, for example. But we have specialists that do each task in the Philippines, and there's switching costs, right? So if Bert gives it to Bea, that might be 5 minutes. It could be 5 days, depending on the situation. And so then I think of that, and I presented to my team about a year ago when I was really getting more interested in this. And what was beautiful was a couple of them said, our takeaway is we've got to level up. That was their takeaway. They're like, listen, we can't be at the low level skill because it seems obvious these AI agents are going to take away those low level skill opportunities, right? So we as humans, we need to level up what we're able to contribute, which you talked about a little bit, and how we're able to move forward and be the the person that does the interactions with the agents. And that's how I feel like myself, my kids, everybody I talk to, they need to continue to level up and build that cooperation with these AI agents. Am I thinking about that correctly?
Yes, but I want to add an extra layer to this. And just for your listeners who, maybe from the Philippines and be like, where does that leave us, right? There's a bit more to that story. So, if you go to school and you go to university is really training specialists, right? Mm-hmm. They're not so good at training generalists. To an extent, like high school is better for generalists because you have a bit of math, you have a bit of language, you have a bit of everything, right? And maybe like your associate's degree in the United States to an extent as well. But by and large, the market has been rewarding like specialists. And the best generalists are the people who do stuff, who go in the world and maybe like the startup founders, they have to wear many hats, or through experience and years, they start learning to see the big picture. And you sometimes run into this, you sometimes run into these like 70-year-old men, right? And they have launched 40 businesses in their career and everything they touch turns to gold, right? And you'd be like, what is your secret, right? And it's that experience, they know how to build teams, they know how to make systems work, they apply the same principles over and over to new models. And that's like the generalist. So in a world of AI and AI agents, right, you have specialists and you have generalists. Now, if you're going to talk about the specialist, what is the specialist supposed to do? Let's say an AI comes out that is really trained on legal or medical stuff. Okay, are you out of luck? Are you out of a job? Right? Not necessarily. See, in my vision of the future, right, you still need human specialists to guide the AI and constrain them. So the problem of alignment is very large in this world of AI. And so you need to make sure that AIs are doing what you want them to do. Now, we've all seen like movies like Terminator, right? That's what you get when you let a central AI kind of take over and have full reign and do whatever it decides to do. We do not want a future like that. We want humans to be in control. So you need a human in the loop. But when you're going to choose to have a human in the loop when it comes to legal matters or healthcare matters, that's going to be a specialist. That's not going to be somebody who didn't study, who doesn't know anything about the topic, because how can they supervise AI and keep things aligned? You know what I mean? So for specialists out there, and it doesn't matter whether you are in the Philippines or you are in the United States, it doesn't matter where you are. Just be good at your job. Because for specialists in companies are going to take their domain expertise and apply it to workflows that agents are allowed to follow. And humans are going to design these approved workflows. You're going to, as a specialist, you're going to have the decision-making process of deciding what data is this model allowed to access and what kind of decisions is this model allowed to make, and what kind of checks and balances do I need to put in place for this level of decision-making. That is a job for the future of specialists. Then the generalists, again, no matter where you are in the world, the generalists are the ones who are going to be able to put, I say, put Humpty Dumpty together again, right? All of the different parts of a business, the bird's eye view, and I think a generalist has had a connotation of like, maybe it's that failure person in university that just couldn't be good enough to be a specialist in something. But there is a possibility to be a specialist generalist and be extremely good at being a generalist. And the main skill of a generalist is to know enough about different areas where you can be dangerous, but also the main skill that's for everyone is knowing what questions to ask and when to challenge and when to push back. And that's, that kind of describes the job of a CEO in many cases, right? And so I want to juxtapose this information, what I just shared with you, because in both those cases, you have opportunity to continue to be a specialist or to continue to be a generalist, albeit you're going to have to be a really good generalist. You can't just skate by like in the past. AI is getting too good for you to get away with just being like moderate. But the creation, the management, and supervision of AI agents is a new job category. This is not just being a prompt engineer. This is you literally being responsible for the processes in your organization, in your field, and making sure the agents are aligned with the values, the data, safety, security policies, and outcomes that your organization wants. This is not a one-time, one-day, say and done deal. This is an ongoing job. This is a brand new job category. And the good news is you're not going to just be an agent engineer. You're going to be a specialist and agent engineer in your field. So companies can have multiple people of different specialties supervising different areas and bring that together. Now, that is additional to what you talked about, because the consumption and working alongside of AI agents, that is also a thing in our future, right? But in addition to just working alongside AI, you also need people that are responsible for these processes that make sure AI is aligned and has these outcomes. And that that is an entirely new job category that will be really exciting to learn and really excited to adapt to for many people who are, excited about this technology and what it can do in their field.
I like that term, agent engineer, which I have not heard a lot. And when I hear that coming from you, I kind of think of it as two pieces to that role. One is imbuing those agents with the specific skills necessary to do that role or that task. And then the other part that it reminds me of a lot is process mapping. They
Yes.
have the contextual understanding to say, I need this agent to do this, and then this one, almost not that we have
Correct.
to like map it out step by step exactly, because hopefully it will help us with that. But
Yeah.
ideally, you need to map out the process. And what I've learned over the years is without context, without deeper understanding, it's
Correct.
very difficult to build a quality workflow, let alone imbue an AI agent with the tasks necessary or the skills necessary.
Yeah. So we call that symbolic control, right? And
Okay.
so when you think of when you want to create an AI agent today, right? You need a foundation model, one or more AI models. You need to make all the connections between them. You need to hook up your data sources. You need to hook up your APIs. You need to say how they can use it, when they can use it. And if you were imagining a pretty advanced agent being like 30,000 lines of code, and you have these multiple AIs in there that are non-deterministic, which means they're kind of like humans. They're a little bit unpredictable. They're not ones and zeros. How do you manage and supervise 30,000 lines of code, right? You don't. It just becomes code soup that is unsupervised. So we have no choice in the future. We have to move to symbolic control. What does that mean? Visual workflows, just like you just described it. And this is the future, we believe, because now at one glance, anybody, even a non-coder, can look at that workflow and say, you know what? That data should not flow to that service. Or is this decision making double checked? Is that verified? And then what if you want to debug it and you had a visual debugger and it ran through the workflow and it showed you exactly the inputs and outputs of every step, and it showed you what succeeded and what failed and where to make adjustments. Now, that is what we think the future of development of these agents and observing and deploying and maintaining what that will look like. And that's exactly what SmythOS is built.
So, and just for everyone else, it's SmythOS. And so
Yes.
that's where I first learned about you. Is a good friend of mine is using SmythOS a lot. And so he's been using it. He told me about it. I said, we've got to reach out to Alexander. I want to talk to him about this because it's obvious you've got a deep knowledge of this. And as a layman, I've tried to figure out like what platform do I use, right? There's almost like a paralysis by analysis a little bit for me. I played with AutoGen. I've played with Zapier. I've used Make. I've used different, and I want to use something that I can kind of commit to that I know is going to be around for a while because I'm going to invest the time and the energy to build the workflows, to build the AI agents, right? So talk to me a little bit about how somebody, an entrepreneur or an individual, maybe who's trying to outsource some of their job even, or help them with that.
Yeah.
How do they think about which platform to choose? Because that's a real problem we have.
Right. So if you look at the market and you want to build a true agent, a true AI agent, you at the basic level, you take a very large model, you give it full access to your APIs, you drag and drop some PDFs, and this is like what a custom GPT looks like. Mm-hmm. And then you let AI decide what it wants to do with that data and with those APIs, and you kind of trust that they will not do anything nefarious. That works for the majority of people and for very simple agentic tasks. Those kind of agents are going to be everywhere later this year, everywhere, from Apple's next Siri to the Google Assistant to Alexa to the next version of Windows that will be from the ground up around co-pilots, and much like the movie Her, those things will be everywhere. They will be in the workspace. They will be in your personal world, and it is going to be very easy, even for the average consumer, non-technical person, to just describe what you want that big old model to do for you, and it's going to kind of just like do that. And that's a real boon to your productivity. Take advantage of that. Play around with those things. They're really easy to do. It's really not a big learning curve. Now, if you're a business, you're going to want some more control, right? I use the analogy, don't mow your grass with a bazooka. You know, the grass is gone, but so is your lawn, okay? So you do not need to throw the biggest, baddest model with full reign at every single problem. That is not the solution, right? So in order to have a bit more control, right now your options are basically code or something like SmythOS that gives you visual control, right? When it comes to code, I have been there. I sincerely dislike it. I think that certain applications, right, even today with all of our modern technology, there's a use case to be made to write certain programs in assembly language or pure C or C++. Okay, skip all the frameworks and just go native code for super high performance stuff that has extremely high bandwidth. Those things are true. There's always going to be a benefit of using code to building agents for very specific use cases. But this is kind of the story of the web before we had WordPress, right? You could have coded a website without WordPress, right? But 99% of people only came online, right, once we had a platform that made it easy. And so this is where we believe SmythOS can play a major role, not to replace code, but to make agent building, advanced agent building without code accessible to the masses. Now, SmythOS is not something that you just like walk into, drag and drop a file and be like, I'm done. It has a little bit of a learning curve. But the beautiful thing is, people without coding backgrounds, we have writers, we have people who just do e-commerce or marketers, and they're building agents now. And they have never deployed or built or configured a server for an API in their life. And now they're creating multiple APIs a week, right?
That's awesome.
Well, how did that happen, right? We have made it so much easier to do. Okay, so then on the other side of the spectrum, you'll also have, you have kind of RPA solutions, robotic process automation. A lot of these providers are trying to retrofit their systems to kind of make that work. If you look at an IBM robotic process automation deployment, like one automation and deploy it, you might look at like $10,000 just for one automation. And then you need a full-time person to be a bot nanny because those things are brittle and break all the time because they don't have, like, at the core, they're not intelligent. These modules break if they see something unexpected. And then you also have tools that are that historically have been doing automation, like Zapier, if then that else, if this then that. Those tools have always been about connecting two services together with very easy little building blocks. And fundamentally, they're not built for advanced workflows in the Gen AI era. They are trying to sprinkle in Gen AI, but it can never really truly replace what code can do. And so I would say with SmythOS, we did something that developers can genuinely replace their agent workflows without writing a single line of code. Complex workflows. Wow. You can orchestrate text, video, images, binary, audio, everything, multimodal. You can have multiple agents working together in a hive or collective consciousness. You can deploy APIs with drag and drop. It has hundreds of thousands of integrations into any imaginable API, AI model. You just bring your API keys and start dragging and dropping. Very often I wake up in the morning, have an idea while I'm showering, and then go to my computer, and like 2 hours later, it's already live. It's extremely rewarding. It's extremely fun. Once you get a hold of this, you have superpowers. And last thing, Remember how I said that it is best when paired with your specialty?
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't know how to make an agent for accounting without an accounting
Right.
specialist helping me. What do you know in your field that is ripe for disruption with AI agents? I can't build it because I'm not you. And I'm sure that you have ideas in your area of expertise that can change the world. And now with SmythOS, you don't have to go for a 4-year degree in computer science to learn how to write syntax that AI can write better than you the next year. You can just start putting your brilliant ideas in your field to work with drag and drop ease.
Okay, so for a non-programmer, I think some people, I've got a buddy of mine, entrepreneur, e-commerce business owner, and anytime we talk about this, anything about technology, he's like, just let me know when there's an easy button, right? Because he's just like, it's over my head. I don't want to get in there. I like to dig in and learn it. Like I am going to get in there. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to start building workflows. That's fun for me. But there's a lot of people that are like, I get it. I understand what you're saying, Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you guys have some templates already on the platform, right?
Yeah.
But let's say they're maybe a generalist and they're saying, hey, I'm not an expert in this or I'm not a specialist. Can I go hire somebody to build this on SmythOS for me?
Yeah.
What do you think about that versus like them just owning it themselves? Or is it just, it's either way, whatever preference they have. Is that correct? Is that how you think about it?
Absolutely. So we have people that come to us and say, can't be bothered, don't have time, build it for us. And we build it for you. We have people that say, I'm very passionate. I want your help, but build it with me so that at the end of it, I know how to build it myself, extend it myself, and maintain it myself. And although I don't have the knowledge, I would like to learn and let's work directly together. Okay. And then there's the brave ones who say just like, hey, let me just consume it. And I'll add one more layer to my answer for you based on the first part of your question that you mentioned. There's a certain group of people in society, and let's just be realistic about that. They're never going to build AI agents. They don't care, right? No, it's as easy as we make it, as easy as the easy button is. They rather consume than create. And that's fine. Yep. That is fine. So how do we help them, such users, such members of our companies, to be frankly, right? How do we help them take advantage of this, agentic revolution? So the way that we see it is, let's say as a company, you roll out Microsoft Teams copilots or Google Workspace Gemini agents or ChatGPT for Teams or whatnot. There's a way for you as an agent creator to deploy your custom agents with security and proper process and data access and everything, to deploy it to these marketplaces. So your team who doesn't care to use it can just go in and consume it. And they don't have to create it, but they can benefit, they can collaborate with it. Maybe it's a writer who doesn't want to create agents and there's an AI editor. And all you say is, hey, this is your digital colleague. Collaborate on this. And now the editing process is defined by you, right? According to your workflow and approved processes. But that writer doesn't need to learn how to build agents. They can just use it. And to make that even easier, I don't know when this episode will air, but this might be a spoiler alert.
Ooh, I like it.
Depending on when that comes out. We have a situation in one of the businesses where I'm working at where it's getting out of hand. First, ChatGPT wants us to buy a team member subscription, $30 per seat per person. And we're like, okay, we're going to give our team ChatGPT. Then Anthropic Claude comes out with a model that some people in our company like. And then they're like, yeah, $30 per seat per person in our team.
Yep.
And then we get an email from Google and say, hey, we're going to push Gemini in your workspace, $30 per user in your whole team.
Yeah.
This is starting to get out of hand. I don't know about you, but that's getting out of hand. I'm like, we got to have something better. And so we had this idea. We said, well, if our agent builders are already bringing their API keys to these AI models in Smith, why don't we just give people a chat interface? And in our pro plans, you can bring unlimited team members to that. And then
Wow.
your entire team can just chat to Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever new model comes out without needing to have thousands of dollars of subscriptions. They can just have it for their whole team. Moreover, if you then happen to create an AI agent in SmythOS, you could also just like hit one button and instantly make it available for deployment without any integration headaches to your entire team.
Wow.
So this is something we're going to bring to our pro plan very soon. And it is not, we're not making any illusions here. We are not going to win the workspace war against Microsoft or Google. All right.
Sure.
If you are a Microsoft organization and you get Teams, Smith agents will work inside your Microsoft organization. They will work inside your Google organization. But there's a lot of companies and individuals and small businesses who do not want to spend $3,000 a month just to have access to a handful of models. It makes no sense. And for those group of people, I think we can make it exceptionally affordable for them to have access to any model and make any model accessible to their entire team without like scaling expensive costs. And then also have the benefit of creating advanced automated automations via AI agents, digital colleagues, and deploy that to their team. And maybe, should I give you one more spoiler?
Come on, one more. It'll probably already be out by the time this gets launched.
Oh,
Give me one
Rob,
more.
you're killing me. All right, so now you have agents, right? You have an AI writer, an AI editor, an AI publisher, like you have individual agents. And now we let you talk to them. Your whole company can talk to them based on your access permission levels, like, so-and-so is allowed to interact with so-and-so colleagues at work and departments and so forth. But then we had this idea and said, why not also, and this is on our roadmap, why not also add AI managers that can manage the AI teams for you? And you just give them high-level instructions and they work with a team members, AI team members that each individually are constrained to only be allowed to work in the approved workflows. But they work with those approved colleagues to get the work done. So you could, instead of being like playing ping pong between the different agents to get the work done, you could hypothetically now come in your morning, you log into SmythOS and you say, hey, content team manager, work with the AI agents and get this done. And then they get to work and they start collaborating and handing off things between them, asking for help when they're blocked. And, imagine what that will do to the workspace.
I have imagined that, and I love the idea. That gets me excited. Mm-hmm. I want to kind of circle back to one thing you said earlier about when you had this epiphany last year about the buildings. And I have no expertise in construction, but my understanding is some of these skyscrapers, there isn't one person that knows everything that goes into being built in a skyscraper because it's gotten so complex, right? You've got a ton of teams of specialists that are building that skyscraper. There's not one person at the top that goes, I got this whole thing. I know every step of the way. Right. It doesn't exist anymore because of complexity, right? Right. And so I think about it that way, that we're getting to that level of complexity while you're going to have to be a really, really good generalist, right? But I just something that popped in my head when you were talking about managers.
And so I'll give you like my best argument, like in a very simple illustration against a future where people are like glorifying like GPT-7 is like some kind of a divine being that knows everything, and like that is a ridiculous future. Okay, imagine the smartest super intelligence, okay? And you ask it, I want to reserve a table at my favorite restaurant. How is that super intelligence supposed to know that a couple just stood up and left and the table became free? How is it supposed to answer that?
It needs the data. It needs access. It has to have access to understand the current situation.
Right. So you have two options, right? One, you let the super intelligence literally access every sensor, every data, every feed, every database, everything in the world, and fully run everything how it sees fit. Wow, that sounds like a recipe for disaster. Or the restaurant has an agent that decides who and what and information it shares and when. And if the super intelligence or the coordinator or orchestrator, called like the queen bee, right, wants to know, hey, Rob wants a table. Is there a table free? It's got to ask nicely.
Mm.
And that is what the web is. Because Google doesn't know anything without crawling
Right.
your website. It needs the constant input and feeding of the entire web to be useful. No matter how smart Google's gotten, it can never know everything on the ground for everything. There's a lot of local news happening too. Local news
Mm.
organizations that are reporting with insights, boots on the ground, reporting with interpretation, and are constantly providing new information, new data, new functionality, new awareness. And so you cannot design a future where this monolithic AI knows everything. It is irresponsible, and it is quite frankly like technically not very smart architecture. Instead, what you want is like the skyscraper. The web is a living, organic, breathing entity. Good agents are going to survive, and bad agents are going like bad websites going offline. And existing agents that are useful and want to compete in a marketplace will keep getting better over time and more useful and upgrade themselves, of course, propelled and accelerated by AI, making their progress faster and better. And eventually, we have the entire web be an executable web, a collaborative web, an interactive web, and we'll have not just one orchestrator, we'll have many orchestrators. Some of these orchestrators will run on your phone, will run locally. Some of them we will trust to the Googles and Apples of this world to run on our phones or in certain walled gardens. But still, these orchestrators will not and should not ever be hooked up to every possible sensor and decision making, because that is just a recipe for disaster. And we get to the skyscraper not by monolithic AI, but by true collaboration of agents, swarm intelligence, collective consciousness.
So I'm a big believer in sharing and masterminding. So I've got a mastermind of e-commerce business owners. And so I'll use a real world example of this. Not everybody's as interested in this as I am. A few of us are, and I will probably be the one diving in deeper than most of them. But when I think about like building out workflow, let's use workflows as an example, right? We all have very similar problems. 80 to 90% of the things that we're going to want to do as e-commerce business owners are the same. There's little tweaks here and there to the workflows. How do you, as a SmythOS is a platform, in my opinion, right? How do you facilitate or get us to collaborate within our own industry? Because I know the space, they know the space. How do we then use the network effect, essentially, of our own little network, right, to
Yeah.
build out these workflows and collaborate ourselves on building out workflows? Is there anything you
Yeah.
can do to help facilitate that?
Yeah. Brilliant question. So there's many ways. Like, for one, right, problems that are typical, like we have design patterns for them. We know how to solve it. We have common diagrams, like do this, then
Yeah.
do that, and integrate with so and so service. Those can become templates, right? And we welcome partners at SmythOS because we don't know what you know, right? So you can create your own workflows templates, and then we have this ludicrously um, generous affiliate program,
Okay. I like ludicrously. That's great.
right? Where everyone, you're benefiting in these ways, right? You're building it, so you're solving it for yourself.
Yep.
Then you're talking about it, you're building your brand and authority.
Yep.
Then people are associating with you, right? Creating that following, that membership, or whatever you call it. For what? For answers, for solutions. Then
Yeah.
you're bringing the solutions to them in the form of, partnerships. We can bring your template to our store, and then they sign up for SmythOS and start using that. Then you can, uh, you know, make this ridiculously generous profit sharing, right, from all their usage, which
Love it.
it's only fair because you brought them and they're your people. And then on top of that, some of them are going to say, hey, Rob, or hey, listener, you seem to be the expert on this. I need it slightly tweaked. Could you help me? Now you make consulting revenue and you charge whatever you want for that. I mean, these are like 4 or 5 ways you can become an agent millionaire, right?
I love it.
You
I love
execute
it.
it in your niche, in your field, and be the best at it. And Rob, some people in your mastermind may not be there yet, and I don't blame them, right? Thomas said, hey, show me the proof. Some
Yeah.
people just want to wait and see. And you know what? We are not the ones driving this market. SmythOS is not driving this market. When you hear Microsoft committing $200 billion in AI infrastructure, Google canceling divisions and laying mass layoffs, but also committing $200 billion. I didn't say million, guys. I said billion, right? In infrastructure. You see what these organizations are doing. Apple, Amazon. You know that this future is being driven by much larger forces than you and I,
Correct.
right? We know this future is shaping before our eyes. What we're concerned with and what we're thinking about is what are these secondary impacts when this future gets created? Who's going to bring my restaurant online? Who's going to bring my law firm online? And how is it going to play in that vast ocean of, Web3, the executable web? How am I still going to remain relevant? This is what we're looking forward to. We're looking to bring the world online in this world, right? You have your website, that's Yellow Pages. Your agent is the new website. That's the way that you're going to survive in an omni-channel world. Your one agent is going to talk to all these marketplaces. Build it once, deploy it everywhere. So those who are still not on board, they will come on board naturally, obviously. The people that still don't have a smartphone, I can probably count them on one hand.
Yeah.
If I go back, 10, 15 years, I knew a lot of people said, why do I need that? Why did I need that? Why do I need a cell phone? Well, okay, the truth is you don't. But if you want to function in a modern society, well, got to move with the times. And if you're not an early adopter, that's okay. Eventually, the market will just be in a place where you're going to feel comfortable, and these technologies get easier and easier to use. And then we have that iPhone moment, right? Right. That just changes everything.
It's funny that you mentioned early adopter because that's what I was just thinking about was crossing the chasm. At what stage are we at right now? It feels like we're in the innovators or the early adopters stage of crossing the chasm. I mean, because I've been paying significant attention. By no means you're in it every day, but I'm paying a lot of attention to it. I feel like everybody is. And then I talk to people and I get blank stares.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
They have no idea. I explain agents and I try to do it. They have no idea. Most people I talk to, business owners included, don't have any idea what I'm talking about.
So let me put it this way, right? You're 100% correct. Okay. But as we approach the singularity, timelines get compressed.
Yes.
So what was crossing the chasm before ChatGPT came out? And it only took 2 months for the chasm to be crossed and it become mainstream. So with the kind of investments and company focus, right, we're talking about, this chasm is you're going to blink your eyes and it's going to be there, right? And so you may say, you know what, Alexander and Rob, love you guys. Thank you for being future looking, but I'm not ready for that yet. But then you wake up in a different world tomorrow where your business is the one who was left behind.
Yeah.
And so this is what, what we're talking about is, don't go all in, but be aware of this stuff, what's happening. Start get a feel for what is about to come. You do not need to run faster than a cheetah to live. You just need to run faster than the guy next to you.
Yep.
Right. And so, you know, listening to this podcast, right? Subscribing to Robb Green, right?
Oh, I like that.
This helps you stay aware of these things so that you, with that awareness, have, a leg up on the guy next to you, right? And this is what we're talking about. There's this movie, The Mummy, or The Mummy Returns.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of the movie, the mummy is very much still does not have his body. And it's working to reassemble its body, and it's influencing the world to contribute in some way to lead to this moment when his body is assembled, right? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about Agent Future or AGI. This is a force that is beyond any individual, where the world collectively is like assembling this mummy. And we know that the collective consciousness of humankind is on this one-way train destination, one-way ticket to this technological singularity moment, right? No, not one country can come out, not even 20, 30 countries can come out and say, we're going to stop this innovation. It is impossible to stop. Kind of like the arms races of the past. This is kind of a force that has taken hold of the world, and this is happening. What we can do as citizens, as husbands, fathers, mothers, brothers, daughters, neighbors, is we can try to do our part in that story to maximize the societal good of this technology. But we do not have the power as individuals or as companies or even as nations. We do not have the power to stop it. People often talk about why Western Europe had the Enlightenment and all the revolutions, while the Middle East fell behind. Well, it was like the fear of the Ottoman ruler that the printing press would be a threat to his rule. And so the printing press was delayed. And so it led to one society moving into the future, and the other one left in a kind of dark ages for a while, right? We have no choice with this technology. It's adopt and thrive, or don't adopt and fall way behind. But we have a distinct and important responsibility, all of us, to use this technology in a responsible way and think about the societal impact. You mentioned the Philippines before, right? When we're thinking about the kind of jobs that are most prone to automation, right? We're thinking about the jobs that we typically don't assign a high dollar value amount in our hiring, right? And so what this is going to do is going to cause the great reshoring. Now that has an impact on developing economies, right? Because a lot of their economy comes from the fact that they can contribute their knowledge work to other countries who have more means. So what happens to those countries? How do we ensure that our technology is accessible to also uplift those economies and those people in those countries who might otherwise be left behind? And that is not just far from our shores, that is also in our own neighborhoods, right? I think there's a humanity here that is very important that we have to keep in mind. So none of this technology can be stopped. but all of it should be conducted with immense sense of responsibility and awareness of the impacts that it has on society at large. And the way I see one way out of this, one way that we can create an exciting future with opportunity for everyone, is when you think about a world where agent to agent microtransactions are going to number in the trillions, so that we get to a point where, number one, everyone in the world can access such technology, just like everyone has the right to have internet access. That means that even a person in Indonesia with little means can now create a company of agents and deliver a brand new service because they are hardworking and have a great idea. But also where the people who are only going to work with their labor and their time, we can abolish income tax because we can just tax agent to agent transactions.
Hmm.
And so we can live in a world where your dignity as a human, right, will no longer be defined by how many hours you slave away at a job you don't want to do just for subsistence. We can lower the cost of essential goods and delivery tremendously. Think of offering universal healthcare in the form of AI doctors and AI tailored medication. Think of universal high quality education with personalized tutoring thanks to AI. So think about lowering the cost of essential goods and services to a point where they become so affordable that the free market no longer can make a profit compared to just giving it for the collective good. Just like we've decided at some point as a society, we wanted a police to keep us safe, than all of us personally having to go and exact vengeance for, hurting our brother. And we can get to such a society where the number of essential goods and services to humans is taken care of to such an extent that we have the ability to engage in soulcraft without taxation,
Hmm.
and still have universal access to these kind of agentic technologies so that people with great ideas can do phenomenal things and continue to drive humanity forward. Um, so this is what I mean with thinking about this in terms of social responsibility. And this is also why we're making SmythOS accessible to also people who have less means. This is really important to us as we're thinking through our personal little contribution in this world.
That's a beautiful vision for the future. A lot of people are afraid, right, of AI and agents and just it taking away from. And when I listen to you, and I'm biased this way, I have an abundance mentality, I think, and so I think about it as liberating, and I think about it as an accelerant because now I believe we're going to have a one person or a two-person billion-dollar company in the next couple of years. In the past, you had to go raise significant amounts of money to be able to do that. But now these tools will allow somebody, let's use Indonesia, in Indonesia, without access to capital, just creativity in their own brain and other tools, be able to create true value producing businesses that the market will value at a significant amount of money because someone else didn't do it, right? It's going to give us that. I think you're going to just see the rapid iteration. I mean, you're seeing it already with, like, let's use Hollywood as an example. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
last 5 years, the film industry is not what it used to be. I mean, I used to go to the movie theater. I mean, that seems like forever ago. I can't remember the last time I went to the movie theater. You know, you've got these iterations of content and creativity now through YouTube and YouTube Shorts and TikTok, and they've created this platform that allows people to tap into the creativity. And I feel the same way about AI agents and AI in general. The people that embrace it, and especially I'll go back to businesses. The businesses that embrace it will thrive. The businesses that don't used to be and won't exist. The gap between the businesses that fully embrace it and those that don't, I feel this is a one-way street, as you said earlier. There's no
Right.
doubt in my mind you have to do this if you want to be a successful business in the future, because you're going to have such a disadvantage if you don't.
So I'll give you an analogy on how, like, for you listeners who are just like hearing all this and be like, this is like this is hurting my brain. This is like hard to wrap my head around. Okay.
Okay.
So in your background right there, you got a beautiful planet Earth. You got that
Yeah.
beautiful model of planet Earth, right? Now imagine that somehow Elon Musk or NASA or China, whatever, right, manages to bring an asteroid into Earth's orbit, like an asteroid. It's not a moon, but big enough where you can see it from the ground, from in the night sky. You can see it like floating and like reflecting some of the sunlight. It's like we have a tiny second Tatooine sun or something, right? Okay, so now that asteroid is there. Okay, the people who capture that and do like that initial mining of that asteroid. Let's say that asteroid is just made of pure gold and diamonds and everything precious. Okay, the first people that mine it are going to make so much money, right? Because the earth values those minerals and resources, and we have a shortage of it and we need it. So the market will value that very highly. Okay. But now what if that asteroid really gets mined and now the supply of gold is like 1,000-fold or 10,000-fold what we have now? What happens to the value of gold? Right? It will decrease. Right?
Yep.
So this is the same thing that's going on with AI. All right. In the long term, right? The things that are common, right, like knowledge work or just basic reasoning, in initial phase, you get access to these tools. It's like capturing an asteroid and mining it, be the first one to bring it to market. You're charging top dollars. You're loaded. You're bringing so much money, right? But after a while, there becomes a saturation point where there's an oversupply. And what does the market do when there's a lot of something? The prices come down, right? And so at that point, it is an important factor in the market economies, because the prices have to come down to force people to innovate and find new ways to add value. And that creates progress in society, right? So if you are trading gold right now, right, and AI comes, why would you not be mining it right now? Right?
I
And
like
if
that.
you are mining gold in the long term, right, use that initial advantage to propel you into further innovation, so you can differentiate when everybody's going to have so much abundance of gold, and what you did yesterday will not have the same value tomorrow, and you need to reinvent yourself. I would argue that one of the best ways that you can do that is learn how to build agents so that you can quickly innovate and adapt to this changing marketplace.
I completely agree with you. Let's talk about the business real quick. I know we're running a little long. I'm fascinated by this, so I could talk about this forever, but I want to be respectful of your time. Your business has been around for how long has SmythOS been around? About a year?
SmythOS is a hard pivot from a
Okay.
previous AI company we did, and we started building SmythOS the day GPT-4 was released, which is like roughly a year and 2 months or so.
Okay. In what your challenge, the opportunity is, you've got a lot of marketing opportunity right now. Right now, it's like getting the word out. You got to get out to early adopters. You got to get at people that want to use it and do that.
Mm-hmm.
How, and this is more my wheelhouse, honestly, how are you thinking about the marketing of this? You've got the templates, which I love. I love the idea of sharing. I love ludicrously attractive affiliate plans. Those are always attractive. What else are you thinking about doing? And I'm happy to help or brainstorm with you about how you're going to get this out to market faster, get more adopters.
Yeah. Well, the market's going to make the market,
Okay.
right? And so the demand is going to create itself. It
Okay.
is about capturing that, and to capture as much as possible of the market. It is all about distribution.
Yeah.
And then in the distribution, we need to leverage network effects
Yep.
to capitalize on that. That's the high level answer. But I could spend a whole hour just talking about the tactical ways that we are planning to approach that.
Yeah. I think about, like, I'll use myself as an example again. I'm a node on that network, and I have my own network. So by me adopting it, I have a couple weeks, I have a mastermind. I promise I'm going to be talking about this in my presentation because I'm so fascinated by it. but then that brings 15 more people into the awareness, right? And so your job is to get out to as many nodes with their own independent networks, and maybe there's some overlap there, right? But using the network effect to get it to exponentially grow for yourself and for your company.
That's exactly what a network effect looks like through partnership distribution. I agree with you. So we think about it through a variety of distribution lenses. One is around the integrations. If you use like software A, B, and C, and we only integrate with A but not B and C, we create friction for you. We need to remove that friction. On the other hand, if we already integrate into the services that you use and make it ridiculously easy, that is just an accelerant. Moreover, the more people we integrate with, the more partnerships we can have, and we create extra value for those integration partners. They can also bring it to their people. Network effects again. Then we move on to kind of like the deployments, where you create an agent. Where do you deploy it? Some people are not looking for a Windows Copilot. They're only looking for a ChatGPT plugin, right? Or a custom GPT for the store. And so if you don't deploy to GPT, that's a friction point. But let's say that you integrate into all these marketplaces and different cloud providers. Now Amazon can say, hey, bring your agents to our infrastructure. Or Microsoft and Azure and so forth can do the same thing. So once again, you can work with partners. I know companies like Intel are very interested in winning the orchestration wars that are coming up, right? So you may have not won the first shot in the round of inference, but you can win the next round of orchestration. And then you go into you go into use cases and industries, which opens a whole new distribution front, right? So your audience is maybe specialized in one area, but lawyers, logistics, defense, all of these are verticals that when there are use cases and templates built that are really solving common problems, it becomes a no-brainer for them to adopt that. And then you have the affiliates who are then sitting on top of all those integrations and are just marketing to their audiences the integrations that already exist and showing them how to create value. And then you have another layer of distribution, which is the agencies and the implementers, the people who are creating all of these, the people that are creating all of these opportunities by means of implementation for their clients, who are the trusted solution, go-to solution people. They too do not want to write 30,000 lines of non-deterministic agent code and then debug that and maintain that. They too want visual control. They too want security. And they stand to benefit from that transformation financially tremendously, right? So there is no more digital transformation agency right now. There's only an AI agency. That's the only thing that remains. And so those are the distribution channels, high level, and then each of those has their own network effects, and each of those has their own roadmap and execution playbook. So we can work through that step by step, and ultimately, I think that a solution like SmythOS makes a lot of sense as opposed to open source. Not that I love open source, but you need to be able to provide a level of service, customer service. Hosting will cost you anyway. You'll have to pay for hosting.
Yes.
If you look at our product, we don't actually charge for our builder. You just pay for running your agents, and it's basically the hosting cost of hosting that thing, right? And if you use open source, you'll have to do anyway. But because we are able to charge for that hosting and providing that service of inference and of orchestration, because we're able to capitalize on that, we're able to invest in tutorials and community and affiliates and our partners, and we're able to provide a level of security and service that with open source, you're just left to your own devices. So, love open source, but for this particular industry, I think it's very important that we focus on making it as easy as possible
Yes.
and as accessible as possible, of course, with social responsibility in mind. So we think of women-led businesses, we think about people in developing economies, we think of veterans, we think of students in those categories, right? If you're in those categories and you're listening to this podcast, come to our Discord channel, talk to us, and let us help you get started. We want you to be equipped for what's coming in the industry. We want you to be having job security going forward. We want you to have these new skills, and we do not want price to be an obstacle for you. This is how we think of social responsibility.
That's awesome. I've got two quick thoughts on that. The first one is I love, and I'm probably a little biased in my industry, but vertical specific case studies sells better than anything else in e-commerce specifically, because we're all parts of groups and 500 or 1,000 people in the group, and they're all successful sellers. One person shows, oh, I did this and this worked and got this result. And it's like moths to a flame. I mean, it is absolutely unbelievable to me.
So, Rob, here's what we'll do. After this podcast is wrapped up, you and I are going to put our heads together.
Okay.
And we're going to make such a use case together that you can bring to the
Perfect.
audience.
I'd love to do that. That would be awesome, because I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to do it because it feels like it has to be done, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to thoroughly enjoy that. The other thing I was going to ask you was a little bit about pricing. So, you'd mentioned like you're going to have to host things. I mean, I've played with like anything LLM, and I've downloaded Llama, and then I got to figure out how to operate it, and then I got to figure out how to update it. So I think also you guys, in more than just orchestration, you're doing some of the curation, right? Of what models should we be using? What models should we be bringing in? You're doing a lot more than just the orchestration of it. And I like the idea, and it's somewhat common in the last few years, of the task-oriented pricing, because that's the model, right? It's based on the number of tasks, and there's a cost structure, I'm assuming, internally from operating those tasks. Is that a way to think about that, and how you're pricing it to manage the load? Because pricing's a nightmare in SaaS.
No, and the way we're thinking about it is like, if you were to hire a person for your team, you have to pay them, right? Every business owner ever, right, wants to pay their people for work actually performed.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So if you don't have to pay us at all, if they're just sitting there being idle, doing nothing, and you only pay for the amount of tasks that you want them to do every month, I think that's the most fair, transparent, and model. On top of that, you're in full control over how complex or how easy your workflows are. So you control the number of tasks that you want to execute, right? And so I understand, my kid saw Smith and he's like, I want to automate my homework, and some other company comes to me and it's like, I want to cure cancer, right? So not all orchestrations have the same value, but we make it easy regardless for anyone to not have to pay for agents just sitting around doing nothing, and to only have to pay for what you use. On top of that, the delta between our entry plans and our higher plans, the price per task drops more than 20x between that. So as you scale, it aggressively cuts the cost per task, to the point where if you had to pay for hosting, pay to maintain those servers, security patches, update the orchestration engine behind it, deal with open source version 2.1 that introduces bugs and then not have support. You have to add people to do all that stuff. That costs a lot of money.
Yes.
If you look at the value of SmythOS, you get so much value, and you only pay for what you use, which is like the ultimate business value, right? You can create a business model on your own and say, this API will cost me this much. And you can actually make a business model around that.
Alexander, one of my favorite sayings, and I feel like I say it every day, but it's at least every week, is I have an unlimited budget for profitable activities. And if I'm tying my budget to profitable activities that I'm either saving money or increasing my revenue, it's the easiest business decision of all time.
Yeah, I say that too. Like a sales team and marketing team did not cost you money as long as they know what they're doing, right? They're just
Correct.
making you money.
They better be making you money. Yeah, that's right.
Right. And so if you're losing money on your marketing, then you're not really marketing, you're testing.
I agree with that. Well, I appreciate we went over time. This has been amazing. Can you tell more? Where should people find out more about SmythOS?
Our website. So SmythOS, SmyThos. OS stands for operating system. SmythOS.com. And then there is somewhere on our website, hopefully a big fat button to join Discord. I hope to see everyone there too. Our team is there. You can talk to our engineers. You can talk to our customer support. I want to run a company that is this close to our clients, that talks to our clients every day, that knows the problems clients are facing. I have a company that does not work separate from the customers they serve. So join our Discord, get help, ask questions. Everyone's there to help you. And it's a wonderful community of agent builders where you can learn a lot. My own profile, Alexander DeRitter, LinkedIn, Twitter, usually. I post a little bit more on LinkedIn than on Twitter, but you can find me in both places.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time today and sharing your vision. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with friends. And if you're an entrepreneur interested in coming on the show, visit therobbgreenshow.com to get in touch. Stay curious and never stop learning, improving, or growing.